All right, shooting out a quick one today because I got some incredibly good news. It's really good news for Italian Americans, specifically people who are fans of movies with Italian Americans in them. Now, my favorite TV series, or one of my favorite TV series, was The Sopranos, and it was just announced that they're going to be working on a prequel. I can't tell you how excited I think I am to hear about this. Uh, Sopranos was a great series. Can't say enough good things about it. And if you're an Italian American, it has like this very different connotation. It's like our roots. It's like this story that we can go back to and talk about how culturally relevant it is to people with our experience. And people may think, well, I'm exaggerating, but the truth of the matter is, it's pretty rare that Italian Americans ever get some kind of um, spotlight in any kind of media as something other than just characters. Now, you can argue that this was bad because they were all mafia people, and essentially, you've got two choices if you're Italian American. You can be uh, in the mafia, or you can be a Jersey Shore douchebag. And truthfully, I think the mafia is actually a much more positive portrayal of Italian Americans. The third option is you can be a pizza maker or run an Italian restaurant. There aren't a lot of options for Italian Americans. So Mafia is actually probably the top of those, right? And then it's like Pizza Maker and then Jersey Shore douchebag. So the fact that we actually have another Sopranos movie coming out is huge. This is actually going to be a prequel. I'm kind of excited about this. Now, I've constantly talked about how various characters in my family are basically mirror images of the characters in The Sopranos, almost to the point where I'm like, were they somehow spying on my family? There's a lot of people that think that I was AJ, who is Tony Soprano's son, because I worked in movies and he became like a movie producer. And that my cousin was like Christopher, who also kind of went on to do movies and so forth. Um, and so it's like strange parallels, but it gets deeper. My father actually owned a racehorse, and if you watch the show Tony Soprano, there's like a big thing about him owning a racehorse. My father was a big racehorse guy, used to go to racetracks all the time. And then the person who I think most resembles Tony Soprano is my cousin's husband, Big Steve. He kind of looks like Big Pussy because he's a big guy, but his personality is Tony Soprano all the way. And he owns a car wash. So if you've seen Breaking Bad, you know what that means. At the same time, his wife Sharon, everyone thinks reminds people of Carmilla, and then my uncle was a spitting image of Uncle June. The two of them could have been like mirror image. I mean, they were, and my father dressed like him and talked like him. So for some reason, old Italian men are variable copies of each other. So all these different characters in The Sopranos were very much reminding me in their mannerisms, the way they looked and the way they dressed, of my family. So, gosh, how often does that happen? How often can you look at a TV series and be like, wow, that's just like me? So maybe they were a bit too stereotypical of the Italians, but it was also a pretty good reflection of real life, which is why I think the show was such a big hit. It really did resonate with lots of people who thought that the show had a lot of realism and was just overall well acted and done very well. Now, it was really sad when James Gandolfini died because now here I was thinking there might be a sequel, there might be another Sopranos movie, or some way that we could keep going with the series, do like a one-off movie for HBO. But now they're working on a prequel, and the prequel is supposed to be taking place in New Jersey in the 60s, maybe 70s, and it's probably going to deal with Tony Soprano's father or young Tony Soprano. If you watch the TV series, his father was briefly in it, not in it a lot, but in it a little bit. And of course, it's probably going to deal a lot with Tony's mom, who was like a psychopath. She was like the craziest character in the TV series if you watched it. And so, um, probably Uncle June will be a young man or younger, obviously, and it might center a lot around their younger exploits as criminals while Tony's growing up, and about maybe how he gets involved in the mafia. The more interesting aspect of it might have been that they're going to try to center the story around the Newark riots. Now, the Newark riots, for those of you that don't know, took place in the late 60s and involved a highly tense situation around race. And there were racial riots with African Americans and police brutality and um, a lot of the issues that people are still struggling with today. And so back in the 60s and late 60s, these riots occurred in Newark, New Jersey. So whether or not they're going to bring those issues into it, it seems like they might. So this series could have a lot of cultural relevance and bring back a lot of the characters that we've all kind of missed for several years and see them in a new light, see them in an older light. It's interesting to note that a lot of the same creative people will be involved with the new Sopranos. So for the most part, we shouldn't really see a lot of lack of continuity. So I don't think we're going to see suddenly, Tony is, too old or too young. I think they're going to try to actually keep a timeline for what all of these characters have done because they were in their 40s or the late 90s. So in the 60s, they would probably just be like young adults or young teens. So it'd be interesting if we see something like a 17-year-old Tony Soprano whose dad is in the mafia and he kind of just starts to get involved in it, maybe starts doing some crimes because that would be the right timeline for that time. I don't know, but I'm very excited about it. So there we go. A new Sopranos and something for me and my family to talk about it the next Thanksgiving is going to be how the show is going because when the show was on air, it's all we talked about. We were talking about who's going to do what, who's going to get whacked, who's doing who's snitching, and etc. So I can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome. And yeah, back to the Sopranos. All right, well that's it. I'm off to do the magic show, and you're going to see that tomorrow. I'm going to do a quick review on Adam Trent. So remember to hit the like and subscribe button so you can hear more about what the heck's going on, and we'll see you next time.